Okay, welcome. I've been thinking about something for the last few years, and I'm trying to get it into a video so that other people can come and bully it and tear it apart. Basically, I've had a hypothesis about the standard model of particle physics and generally how the universe works. Up on screen, you can see that I've doodled a few pictures. Um, Basically, each one is a representation of one of these basic particles of the standard model, the bosons and fermions and leptons. Up in the top left, we've got the Higgs boson. Now, the depending on the direction of rotation, that will give you the charge. Depending on the number of space particles, that's what I'm calling them, space particles, that are in the orbital ring. Right. So here I'm just trying to outline something that I've been considering called ring theory, attempting to describe the standard model of particle physics with one single particle. I would argue that this is what Einstein described originally as quanta. Because effectively each of this particle is the base energy of existence. So in certain configurations, I call it ring theory because they orbit in rings. The interlocking rings connect together to form matter as we know it. The configuration of the space particles within the orbital is what gives rise to charge. The number of orbitals, the number of space particles within the ring is determinant of its value, like the value of its charge. However, there are four, but one cannot be taken away. One represents effectively it either exists or it doesn't. But the one is basically the energy of the ring itself. That's why an up quark has three, but notice it goes in an opposite direction. Ultimately, so you've got the W bosons and the Z boson. So the W having a positive and a negative charge because the ring is unbalanced. That's what gives rise to it being able to possess a charge, and then the direction gives you the charge that it will actually have. Depending on the diameter of the orbital ring, that's what gives rise to the mass. And the overall direction of the system, if it's if it's a positive overall spin, then that would give you spin. If there is no positive overall spin, then you have zero spin. Now, obviously, there's an awful lot of maths and probably an awful lot of physics that needs to go into this in great detail. There needs to be some people willing to try and tear it apart. That's ideally what I'm looking for. Some people to come along and ruin my idea. But ultimately, there are two base particles in existence. This one, which is space, and another one, which is time. Time flows through all of these rings, and as it flows through one of the rings, it accelerates. But it is the passage of time through the ring that gives rise to what we know in the universe as motion. Now, how these exist in space. Imagine an ice cube floating on an ocean. The ice cube is made up of the water itself, but it's in a different configuration or format, and thus it floats on the surface. Well, effectively, that's what we have here. Space itself, as we know it, is made up of these space particles, but it's like a sea. These float on the surface of that sea, and as time passes through them, that's what gives rise to what we know as motion, why we see time in moments, but also it adds this pressure to these particles that forces it into the sea itself. It's that displacement that we know as gravity. Now, the size of the orbital ring is what denotes the gravitational field, the gravitational effect that that particular particle will have on the sea itself. So it's time flowing through these that gives rise to gravity and the diameter of the ring. Now, when time is not flowing through matter, it flows through space itself. This causes space to constantly be in a state of flux, imagine space as a superfluid. Well, time flowing through it agitates it and causes it to stretch, which is what we see as our universe expanding and why dark energy exists. Now, when time flows through enough matter, it accelerates to a point where it drags the matter into space, but it causes enough turbulence that this all breaks down and these all become part of the sea itself. Thus, black holes, supermassive black holes at the center of galaxies, they are converting matter directly into space. And that's why we have this dark matter problem, because the galaxies have more gravity, because the matter that was once there is no longer there. It's been converted into space. However, the gravitational effect of that matter is still there. Right, Big Bang. Right at the beginning, when time was flowing. Sorry. Okay, right at the beginning, when time was flowing into our universe, that's what caused the Big Bang. As time flows through the superfluid of space, it causes it to stretch, and eventually it tears a hole in it, thus resulting in what we know as the Big Bang. The initial rapid expansion at the beginning was because of all the energy being released by the tearing of space. That's what caused the Big Bang inflation to be rapid, and then the cosmic inflation that we know as dark energy is just the force of time flowing into the universe, causing our universe to stretch and expand. Imagine the multiverse is a sponge made of a superfluid, and our universe is one of the voids inside the sponge. Only we exist on the inside surface of that void. Now, time flows through the multiverse. If anyone's watched Avengers Endgame, you'll know that they use the term a Mobius strip. Well, imagine that, where the center of it is where the space superfluid exists, and time flows in a sort of dicky bow approach through the space superfluid, the dicky bow multiverse, you can call it. So as time flows through this superfluid space sponge, it causes it to tear. It releases a load of these space particles into the void, which is what we know as matter. And as a result of this flow of time, we get dark energy, dark matter, gravity, the rapid expansion in the early universe. Might also explain why the temperature of everything was all the same right at the very beginning. Either way, that's just been a few of my thoughts. It's been stuck in my head for the last 3 years. I can't seem to get rid of it. Now I really need someone to come along and tear it apart. But ultimately, that's it.